Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mrs. Ronald Reagan. Mr. Bob Iger. The Honorable David Ferriero. Mr. Fred Ryan. Mr. Stephen Clark. Mr. John Highbush. And the Voices of Liberty, who will sing our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land, o'er the land, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
You may be seated. Please welcome the Executive Director of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and your host today, John Highbush.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us on this beautiful day. It is my distinct honor to welcome you all to the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library for the Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives grand opening celebration. Before we get started with today's program, I'd like to take a moment to recognize some special guests we have with us today. From the Reagan Foundation Board of Trustees, Mr. Rick Caruso. Rick, thank you for coming. Mr. Lod Cook. And Ambassador Robert Tuttle and his wife, Maria Hummer Tuttle. I'd also like to recognize several elected officials we have with us today. From the city of Simi Valley, we have Mayor Bob Huber, Mayor Pro Tem Barbara Williamson, Councilman Mike Judge, and our city manager for another few days, Mike Siddell. From the city of Moorpark, Councilman Mark Van Dam. And from the county of Ventura, County Clerk Mark Lund and Fire Chief Mark Lorenzen. Gentlemen. Also joining us as a special guest, from one of President Reagan's favorite universities. And this university was his alma mater in the movies. Father John Jenkins, president of the University of Notre Dame. Father. Now, it goes without saying that no special event with Disney would be complete without being joined by some of Disney's remarkable legends. May I ask that the legends in the audience rise so that we may give you a round of applause. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the staff at D23, the Walt Disney Archives, and the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Library team for their tireless work to create such an incredible exhibit. It's hard to believe that our first meeting to conceive of this exhibit was just 6 months ago. Finally, I also want to give a very special thank you to our exhibit co-sponsors, each of whom are represented here today. UPS, the movers of the magic, and our friends at Wells Fargo. They deserve a round of applause as well. A big thanks as well to the Air National Guard Band of the Southwest for our terrific music this morning. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you. Thank all of you very much, and thanks to all who have come here today to join in the magic and memories of two extraordinary Americans, Walt Disney and our 40th President, Ronald Reagan. It is now my honor to introduce Stephen Clark, Vice President of Corporate Communications for the Walt Disney Company and the head of D23 and the Walt Disney Archives. Stephen?
Good morning. On behalf of everyone at the Walt Disney Archives and D23, the official Disney fan club, we are very excited to open what we hope will be an extraordinary exhibition and experience for all Disney fans. D23 was created to share Walt Disney's outstanding creative legacy and to celebrate the magic of Disney's past, present, and future with Disney fans all around the world. In that spirit, we are proud to present Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives. With more than 500 iconic pieces spanning Walt Disney's lifetime and nearly 90 years of Disney storytelling, we are sharing the crown jewels of the Disney Archive's massive and ever-expanding collection. More than half of the pieces showcased in this exhibit have never been publicly displayed before, and others have very rarely been seen outside the berm of Disneyland or outside the gates of the Walt Disney Studios. This very special exhibit has been a labor of love for all of us at the Walt Disney Archives and D23, and one that would not have been possible without the wonderful people here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Foundation and the National Archives, all of whom have been invaluable partners throughout this project. I'm especially grateful for the dedication and tireless work of the entire Walt Disney Archives team. Thanks to them, nothing Disney is ever really lost. Virtually every movie produced by Disney, every theme park attraction that has ever been updated or retired, and the vast contributions of the creative legends that defined our history and are now shaping our future all live within the archives, safeguarded by the people who understand just how important they are. Walt Disney once said, "I love the nostalgic myself. I hope we never lose some of the things of the past." Walt never lost sight of or appreciation for what it took to get him from where he was to where he was going. We take that approach, the very same approach, in preserving our history and in presenting it to the world. We look forward to welcoming that world over the next 9 months to this, the Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives. I would now like to introduce the Archivist of the United States, the Honorable David Ferriero.
Nation's history. Throughout that history, American presidents have celebrated the success of our citizens, the significant contributions to our country made by generals, authors, teachers, business leaders, entertainers, and more. The people who challenge us, educate us, and serve as role models. The people who inspire us as Americans. Today we pay tribute to a true American original whose impact is still felt today, Walt Disney. Every president since Franklin Roosevelt has had some personal connection with Walt Disney or his legacy. Lyndon Johnson said it best in a letter where he wrote, "The magic of Walt Disney was larger than life, and the treasures he left will endure to entertain and enlighten worlds to come." That presidential library is part of our country's history and is on display in this exhibit. While in office, the Carters didn't get a chance to visit Disneyland, but that didn't stop Amy from writing a wonderful letter to Walt Disney Studios. It reads, "Dear Sirs, I am at Camp David with my parents." Isn't that a great way to start a letter? "I've just seen The Rescuers for the 3rd time. I liked Evinrude best of all. He's cute. He's my hero. Dad likes him too. Can you send me a picture of him? Love, Amy Carter." Priceless, historic, and just downright fun. Perhaps no other president was closer to Mr. Disney than Ronald Reagan. They would become close personal friends in great part because of similar strong personal beliefs. Both came from the Midwest, where their high principles and strong family values were established, values that would play an important role throughout their lives. Both traveled to California in search of a dream and enjoyed success beyond anyone's imagination. Their hard work, determination, and hope for the future have dramatically influenced people around the world. Ronald Reagan transformed the course of America, and his leadership left an indelible mark on us all. Walt Disney also left an indelible mark. He changed the way America thinks by creating many of the most entertaining, interesting, and historic moments in film and entertainment. As President Ronald Reagan restored our national pride, made patriotism fashionable again, and reignited the spirit of America, believing very deeply in the American people. He referred to Americans as gifted and propelled by a spirit unique in the world, a spirit tenaciously devoted to solving our problems and bettering our lives, the lives of our children, and of our country. Walt Disney epitomized that spirit and embodied the American dream. To honor that spirit, the Reagan Library, the Reagan Foundation, and the Disney team have created a one-of-a-kind exhibit that pays tribute to a great American, an exhibit that takes you from humble beginnings in the Midwest to the lights and glamour of Hollywood. An historic journey where a president and a creative genius crossed paths, became great friends, and left legacies unmatched by few. The National Archives and Presidential Libraries are proud of the history of these two iconic individuals. We feel a sense of responsibility not only to preserve and protect and present that history, but also to promote it. And you know what fun we can have just doing that. Just think, if we didn't save our history, we couldn't learn from it or have the opportunity to showcase our treasures. This magnificent exhibit will engage, educate, and entertain you with a blend of traditional museum experiences using historic objects, coupled with creative production techniques and storytelling that creates interest and excitement. As President Reagan might say, it's just like the second time you go on a ride at Disneyland. You know the ending, but the excitement still engulfs you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the President and Chief Operating Officer of Albritton Communications Company, and more importantly, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation, Mr. Frederick J. Ryan, Jr.
Thank you, David, and thank you for all you do for the presidential libraries and for your excellent stewardship of our National Archives. On behalf of the Reagan Foundation, it's my pleasure to welcome you here. Thank you for joining us for this very special day. The making of this incredible exhibition actually began 57 years ago this month. In 1955, July of 1955, a young actor, Ronald Reagan, was invited by his movie producer friend, Walt Disney, to go to the vast orange groves of Anaheim, California. Ronald Reagan was to be the MC for the opening of what was being described as a new amusement park. Well, as they say in the movie business, the rest is history. Ronald Reagan went on to follow his dream of a shining city on a hill, becoming President of the United States, and Walt Disney wished upon a star, creating the largest entertainment company the world has ever known. Both men lived lives that could only be described as e-ticket rides. I'm interested in how many people in the audience remember the e-ticket. If you have one, you might want to turn it over to the Disney archives. 30 years later, as President of the United States, Ronald Reagan would visit his friend Walt's new park, Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And it was an especially meaningful trip for Ronald Reagan. As you may recall, in January 1985, at his second presidential inauguration, Washington was impacted by record low temperatures. And in light of health and safety concerns for the thousands of young people that would march in the inaugural parade, many events, including the inaugural parade itself, had to be canceled. It was a big disappointment for so many high school bands that had traveled across the country to be in the parade, but the weather was just dangerously cold. Then a call came to the White House from the Disney company. They said, bring your inaugural parade to the place where dreams come true. So a few weeks later, in the warm sun of Orlando, Florida, President Reagan got his inaugural parade. And most importantly, the dream came true for all the young people who got a chance to be part of it. In his speech that day, as he did so often during his presidency, Ronald Reagan spoke of the immense force for good that can be found in the imagination of men and women who are free to take chances and to pursue their dreams. American history has no better example of that deeply good and creative spirit, the spirit that has led Americans for 2 centuries to invent and build and to envision and to follow. No better example than Walt Disney. President Reagan's great relationship with Disney continued literally to the final days of his presidency. You all know the wonderful creative campaign Disney has used over the years called What's Next? You've seen the winning quarterback of the Super Bowl. He's on the sidelines of the game. The announcer raises a question and says, you've just won the Super Bowl. Where are you going next? And he says, I'm going to Disneyland. Well, today may be the first time it's made public, but near the end of his term, a call came into the White House from the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, Bob Iger's predecessor. His proposal was to have Ronald Reagan do a what's next. A camera would catch him exiting the White House on the last day of office, the helicopter waiting in the background to take him away. An announcer would say, President Reagan, you've just completed 2 successful terms in the White House. What are you going to do next? And he would respond, I'm going to Disneyland. That's true. It was a wonderful offer, but in the end it was felt it was probably not the best thing to be the final act of the President of the United States. However, it was not more than a few months later that President Reagan was back at Disneyland for the 35th anniversary of its opening. And a special parade was held in his honor, and many of those who were present on Disney's opening day 35 years before were able to march in the parade with him. And here on display in the Presidential Library is a special memento of that day. It's a Mickey Mouse cap, complete with the ears, and embroidered on the front, it's probably the only one, it says, Mr. President. So when the opportunity arose to have this spectacular collection of Disney treasures open for the public, we know there'd be no better place than here at the Reagan Presidential Library. Walt Disney together with Ronald Reagan. It doesn't get much better than that. Our thanks go to the incredible creative team at the Walt Disney Company for making this spectacular exhibit possible. This is the largest exhibit the Disney Archives has ever curated and the largest temporary exhibit the Reagan Library has ever housed. So for the next few months, the Reagan Library tour guides will be able to greet each visitor by saying, welcome to our Magic Kingdom. Well, it's now my pleasure to introduce the man who oversees the Magic Kingdom and every other aspect of the Walt Disney Company. Bob Iger is regarded as a visionary in the worlds of media and entertainment. He played a key role in the merger of Cap Cities, ABC Television with Disney, a combination that shaped and transformed the global media landscape. As chairman and CEO of Disney, he has been responsible for bringing Pixar and Marvel Comics into the Disney corporate family. In all that he has done at Disney, he has dedicated himself to fostering the creative vitality of the Disney organization and expanding the company's presence throughout the world. Under his guidance, the Walt Disney Company has become the world's largest media company. Bob, please know how deeply grateful we are to you for your support and your leadership in bringing this special exhibition together. Now please join me in welcoming one of the world's most respected business leaders, Bob Iger.
Thank you very much, Fred. Very, very generous remarks. And I must admit, I'd never heard that story about Michael Eisner and Ronald Reagan and what's next. That's a great idea. Michael was a big thinker. I like that. We like big thinkers. So thank you all for joining us here today. It's a beautiful morning here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. And I'm especially honored that Mrs. Reagan could be here with us for the opening of this exhibit. This is a rather historic day for Disney. As you've heard, this is the first time that we've ever opened our archives to the world on such a grand scale. In the past, we've offered glimpses of our iconic Disney memorabilia, usually just at our theme parks and a few expos here and there, but never anything quite like this. And we're obviously very immensely grateful to everyone at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library for this opportunity. I can't think of a more perfect place to showcase the legacy of such a wonderful individual, Walt Disney. I appreciate the tremendous support as well as the phenomenal work of our team. D23 and the Disney Archives has just done a great job not only preserving the legacy of this great company, but now giving everyone a chance to actually take a glimpse of it. Now, Walt Disney and Ronald Reagan shared more than a mutual admiration. They shared ideals and a friendship, as we heard, along with a kind of unwavering optimism that makes anything seem possible. And working together, Disney and the Reagan Library have found countless connections between these two rather American originals, and several of them are featured in this new exhibit. But the real connection goes deeper than documents or events or quotes or even some of the stories that have been told. These two men shared the dream of America and an unshakable belief in its people. And you can see it in President Reagan's vision of America, the shining city on the hill, offering hope for everyone who dared to dream of a better future. And you can also see it in Walt Disney's desire to showcase the America that he grew up in and share it with the world, including that great iconic street from Walt's early days, Main Street, USA, the vision of the happiest place on earth. Now, they both appreciated our history, but neither one allowed themselves to be ensnared by it. Instead, they always looked forward with tremendous optimism and hope, convinced that our best days were actually still ahead of us. And they saw a future of infinite possibilities, just waiting to be realized by people who were bold enough and daring enough and audacious enough to try. Perhaps they believed in the American dream so deeply because they were both perfect proof that is indeed a reality. Where else could a man carrying little more than a small town values and a suitcase and a belief in himself set out in the direction of his dreams and not only fulfill them, but exceed them in the most unimaginable ways? Obviously, President Reagan, the leader of the free world, and Walt Disney, one of the world's most beloved and greatest storytellers. And now, for the first time ever, we can follow their steps toward their destinies and see the early influences and inspirations that shape these two distinctly American individuals, and appreciate how they, in turn, shaped the world that was around them and ahead of them. Now, I believe the strength of our country lies in the strength and the character of its people, especially those like Ronald Reagan and Walt Disney, who inspire us with their personal stories and professional achievements, as well as their relentless hope and excitement for the future. These two men made their mark on our history with indelible integrity and immeasurable impact, and it's important that we appreciate and celebrate their lives, their work, and their lasting legacies. And we're deeply honored to share this exhibit with the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and the countless visitors who can now explore and appreciate the legacies of these two very extraordinary men. We're also very happy to be part of another special occasion. So, Mrs. Reagan, if you could please join me. Now, today may be a big day for Disney, but tomorrow is a very special day for Mrs. Reagan, and we all wanted to be the very first to wish Mrs. Reagan a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Reagan.
There you go. I think, is that a first for you? First time Mickey and Minnie wish you a happy birthday, I think, yes. Well, Mrs. Reagan, on behalf of everybody at the Walt Disney Company, I hope you'll accept what is going to be a small token of appreciation for this great event. If you'll excuse me 1 minute, I'm going to unveil it very carefully. So, here you go. Here you come right over here. So this is a small token of appreciation. It's a very, very special piece. We've got two wonderful artists who work in the medium of glass, and they've created not only a great statue of Mickey Mouse, but with this wonderful canister that happens to house red, white, and blue jelly beans, and we know who the world's most famous jelly bean fan was. And of course, Mickey and Minnie are big jelly bean fans too. So I would be honored, Mrs. Reagan, if you would help me cut the ribbon here so that we can officially open this exhibit.
All right.
Just get a pair of scissors. Okay. It is with great pleasure that we declare the treasures of the Walt Disney Archives here at the Presidential Library officially open. Careful.
The land of the free, the home of the brave, America, America. The red and white and blue still waves. So hooray for the red, white, and blue. So hooray for the red, white, and blue. Thy banners make tyranny tremble. So hooray for the red, white, and blue. Hooray for the red, white, and blue. May it wave as our standard forever, the gem of the land and the sea, the banner of the right. The tyrants remember the day when our fathers were mighty together, who claimed as they marched through the fray, that by their might and by their right it waits forever. And by their might and by their right it waits forever. Oh, you're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and ever in peace may you wave. The emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, where there's never a boast or brag. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on that grand old flag. America, America, the red and white and blue. Still hooray for the red, white, and blue. Hooray!
Thank you for joining us today for the grand opening of D23 Presents Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives here at the Reagan Presidential Library. The exhibit will open immediately following lunch. We hope you enjoy this extraordinary new exhibition.